There was once a school where the price of graduation was survival. No diplomas, no medals, only two possible outcomes: come out transformed, or never come out at all. Hidden deep in the mountains, surrounded by silence, echoes of screams, and the scent of incense, there was a school so brutal, so demanding, that for centuries it was known by a single name: the School of Death. And this is no fiction. Deep within Chinese folklore, there are legends of monasteries where the monks were not peaceful. They were warriors, where kung fu wasn't a discipline, but a constant life or death trial, where the final exam was not a kata. It was surviving pain, fear, and the ultimate enemy, oneself. Today, I'll guide you through legends, records, and real accounts of schools where masters didn't teach to educate, but to harden, where only the strongest could move forward. And no, not everyone made it. Martial might, where warriors live forever. According to the oldest texts from the Shaolin temple, when a young boy arrived at the monastery, he wasn't trained. He was made to clean, to cook, to carry water, to observe. For years, he wouldn't touch a weapon, not a single stance. Why? Because the first enemy was the ego. Only when pride had died would the real training begin. Years of striking trees, carrying iron buckets, walking on sharpened stakes, all to develop what they called the iron body and the empty mind. But there was one test that few dared to speak of: the Hall of the 108 Enemies. It was said that before leaving the temple, the disciple had to walk through a corridor where 108 expert monks awaited, each with a different technique, each with one mission: make him fail. It wasn't a choreography, it was a war, an ambush of 108 different ways to lose. If you fell, they lifted you. If you begged, they turned you away. If you gave up, they erased you from the temple. And that wasn't the end. At the end of the corridor, according to certain legends, one final trial awaited: lifting a red-hot iron urn with your forearms. Doing so would brand you for life with the temple's emblems, the tiger and the dragon. That was your graduation. But many never made it. Some died before reaching it. Others were crippled, and some simply disappeared. Today, many historians doubt the literal existence of the hallway, but what is certain is that Shaolin training was so brutal, more than 60% of novices dropped out in the first year. And that was only the beginning. Although most of these accounts sound like legend, there exists a little-known document called the Secret Treatise of Shaolin Boxing, dated to the Qing dynasty, which details extreme training methods with phrases such as "strike water until it boils" or "hold horse stance for 3 moons without interruption." Though symbolic, these phrases reveal the level of endurance expected: a body that didn't just resist pain, but turned it into virtue. Because in other corners of Asia, there were even darker schools, where the goal wasn't to create monks, but to forge assassins. In Japan, during the Sengoku period, the most extreme ninja clans created secret training camps known as shadow fields. There, orphans as young as 6 were forced to fight one another, to survive for days without food, to climb cliffs with knives between their teeth. And if they failed, they were eliminated, not out of cruelty, but a strategy. Only the best could join the clan. But it wasn't all physical. In some of these camps, training included hours hanging upside down to sharpen focus under pressure. Students learned to read lips in the dark, walk silently over gravel, and identify poisons by scent. Silence was their teacher, stealth their religion, and a single mistake, their death sentence. It is said that some ninja clans practiced a technique called Mokuton no Jutsu, which involved burying the apprentice underground with only a small bamboo tube to breathe through, remaining completely still for hours as masters walked nearby, unaware of their exact location. If they were discovered by the sound of their breath or a shift in the soil, they failed. Body control had to be absolute. Self-control. Divine. In Thailand, there are stories of secret kumite in temples of the north. Practitioners of Muay Boran were forced to fight to the death as their final graduation ritual. The one who fell was buried in the temple. The one who won became a master. These schools were clandestine, their names never spoken aloud, because what was taught there was not for the civil world. Even in Korea, during the height of the Hwarang, an elite warrior caste, rites of passage included walking across burning coals, sleeping under freezing rain for weeks, and engaging in no-rules combat in the dead of night. In India, the ancient schools of Kalarepayattu, one of the world's oldest martial systems, subjected disciples to intense fire meditation, prolonged fasting, and balance exercises atop swords. The body had to be as awakened as the soul, because each technique had a dual purpose: to kill or to heal. In the Philippines, the ancient warriors of Cali trained with sticks, knives, machetes, and bare hands. But before touching any weapon, initiates were sent alone into the jungle for weeks, with no fire, no prepared food, only what nature provided. The goal was not just to train fighters. It was to forge hunters, trackers, human shadows who could read the earth like an open book. And in West Africa, certain Mandinga tribes held warrior rites where youths spent days inside pitch-black huts without human contact, hearing only war drums and their own thoughts. The isolation was designed to break fear. They emerged only when they truly knew who they were, and if they didn't, they never came out. Even in the West, though less widely known, some medieval military orders like the Teutonic Knights practiced iron novitiates. During these trials, initiates were isolated in fortresses under vows of silence, voluntary deprivation, and fasting, while reading texts on death and sacrifice. It was believed that only those who had renounced fear could wield the sword with justice. It wasn't just faith. It was mental and spiritual training. Why? Why turn learning into torture? Because to them, martial art was not a sport. It was survival. They didn't train for tournaments. They trained not to die on the battlefield. And for that, the body had to be unbreakable, the mind impenetrable, the heart unshakable. Some samurai even developed techniques known as katsu and atsu, which allowed them to revive an unconscious comrade or seal wounds with precise pressure. The line between life and death was so thin, the warrior had to be both doctor and executioner, to heal and destroy in the same breath. That was true mastery. Today, many of these methods have vanished, and rightfully so. They were inhumane, cruel, sometimes criminal, but they also left behind a brutal truth. Mastery is not born in comfort. It is born in the abyss. Even Bruce Lee spoke of this. He said, "True training begins when you can't go on, and you still do." In these schools, that was just the